Hello, everybody. This is Charles Alvarez, CEO of Cornerstone Growth Solutions. Welcome to another podcast. I am blessed today to be joined by Carissa Orozco. She is the head of sales for CloudVirga, and they're coming up with some really cool solutions for lenders that I'm excited to talk to you about today. Carissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Charles.
It's my pleasure. So, one thing that I'm always intrigued by is, obviously you've got some great sales experience. You're really good at what you do. You understand the sales process, how to manage a team, how to bring on a team. Of all the different places that you could have brought your talents to, what was it about this specific opportunity that said, yeah, this is where I need to be?
Yeah, great question. So it was a few factors. I can say that after 20 years in the mortgage industry, that I have a pretty good grasp of, the kind of companies that I wanted to work with, work for, and I definitely wanted to stay on, the fintech, SaaS solution side of the mortgage industry. I was previously in on the origination side for again about 20 years, and then the last 5, 6 years I switched over to the to tech companies in the mortgage space. So I had actually heard of CloudVirga when I was at a reverse specific LOS company, and I was strategic partner there. And CloudVirga was a solution for one of our largest customers, Finance of America. So I knew who they were. I knew they had a strong platform. I hadn't really heard a lot of them anything new really in the last couple of years about them, other than they were acquired by Stewart Title, which of course is a very reputable company in the space. I mean, they've been around what 120 years or something like that. I mean, it's insane. So obviously having that strong backing, was definitely interesting to me. But what really intrigued me was when I was speaking to our CEO Maria and our head of product Jessica, that there was a new solution they were coming out with. And this new solution, it's a point of sale system, but it's so much more than that. It offers upfront credit and income verifications, as well as pricing, AOS decisioning. There's a loan hub or dashboard, if you will, sort of a pipeline management tool for loan officers. And it can lay across any tech stack, which was very interesting to me. And again, being backed by Stewart, there's also kind of long-term uh, integration there with Stewart Title and an appraisal solution. So I really saw this as an opportunity, not just for the mortgage industry, but actually non-mortgage as well. Auto, consumer lending. It could really expand across the full gamut of lending, and that's something that was very important to me. Mortgage, as we know, is very cyclical. Right now, we're in a little bit of a down cycle. So in times like that, it's very, the market's very difficult, right? So, I knew I wanted to go to a company that had a solution that could expand across all lending solutions and not be so focused on mortgage only and that mortgage cycle, because, it can be pretty brutal out there.
Sure. I find it really cool that you actually came from the industry and were part of, the other side, kind of getting your hands dirty with the actual underwriting process and the mortgage process. How does that help you become more relatable and understand some of the challenges that these lenders might be going through, and specifically how the solution can help address those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've done it all. I think the only thing I haven't done is I was never like a closer or funder, but I was an underwriter, processor. I even packaged the closed loan files, back in the day, subprime. Then I was a sales executive, like just, killing what I hunted. So I 100% understand the plight of loan originators and of lenders and what they go through on a daily basis. And I'm still a licensed originator to this day. So yeah, it's definitely helpful to know the plight of your customer, right? And to say, I've been there, I've been in your shoes, I know what's going on, I know your pain points. So that definitely helps. And I was actually surprised when I went to fintech space, how many tech companies did not have that mortgage experience. They were building products and systems for, mortgage originators, and yet they never originated a loan in their life. A lot of them didn't even know the mortgage process.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I worked at tech companies where we had to have mortgage 101 classes for our internal employees because they didn't know. And I remember thinking like, wow, is that common? That's not common. That can't be common. How are you building solutions for people and you don't even know their process? And
That's
I think that has unfortunately dissuaded a lot of lenders from adopting a lot of the technology out there because unfortunately they were developed by people that don't have that experience. So yeah, they may talk to people and they may assume, but when you speak to engineers that come from building something completely different, or they were in healthcare, or you know, both, this is something completely different, commercial, they need to understand, the mortgage origination process because it is different. It's unique, and it comes with its own sets of, of challenges. So for me, I found it very helpful, and a lot of the people I worked for and with appreciated that. They could appreciate the fact that I could speak their language and I knew again what they were going through, and I know what they're going through. So when I say this is a system that I would use, or this is a system that, my best friends who are loan officers, would use, then, I can, that comes with, much more weight, I think, than just saying, hey, this is a good system. You should use it. It should, you know, positively impact your workflow the way we built it. Oh, yes, A, B, C. And then you talk to a lender and they're like, well, we don't use it that way at all. That's not our workflow. Actually, that doesn't happen. So, you know,
that's cool.
yeah,
So
you
I
could
don't.
read rules and regulations on mortgage and then you go find out real world. They're like, oh, okay, that's not really how lenders do, you know.
So that's cool that you understand their plight. So let's talk about the solution that you currently have and why it's so intriguing. So, what are some of the challenges that these lenders need to be going through that make your solution a good fit? And you mentioned just a little bit ago that, hey, when I was in the actual business versus selling a solution to the business, this is something that I would have used, that I could have benefited from.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what plight or what challenges somebody that might be listening is having where this solution would be a good fit? And I'm curious to know why is it that you wish you would have had it when you were in the mortgage business?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few things that could, delay a loan closing, from application, to closing. I could list them. But this solution specifically is a front end consumer facing product. Like I said, it is a point of sale. But what's so unique about this is that it's one login. It's very easy for the consumer to upload, their documents, their conditions. There's auto condition list based on the products that, the lender can control. So from my perspective, as a loan officer, I could use this to tell my borrowers, hey, just log in here. Everything that you need or that I need from you is going to be here listed, very simply. And there are other solutions that do that, sure. But this UI is much, much easier to navigate, I feel. And the fact that, it auto uploads, into the loan origination system. The fact that it is just one system for everything. So we pull in, like I said, there's pricing, there's the data points, there's the AUS decisioning. Everything lives in this one system. One thing that I do believe is a challenge still for many lenders is that their originators still have to log into 3 or 4 different, technologies for pricing, for decisioning. A lot of it goes through the main LOS that they're using, but again, it's still kind of clunky, right? Or it's like just an iframe in. It's not like a true origination. So our system provides that true origination, and it doesn't, like I said, it's not meant to disrupt anything. It's not meant to say, hey, you got to change your whole workflow or you got to change everything you're doing. You don't. This lays across your current tech stack. Many, lenders, credit unions, banks, they're not going to have a full dev team, to say, okay, everybody drop everything and let's, do this integration here and let's make sure, up and running, or, have loan officers have to stop, production because they have to change over, right? That's huge. That's huge time loss, and, time is money. So this solution, cuts through all that. We provide this implementation in a matter of weeks, not months. And again, with the integrations that are already built, it lays right on top of the tech stack. So it's just the ease of use and having everything automated and everything verified through one platform. I mean, again, I wish I would have had that when I was, originating full time because it would have been so much easier than piecemealing from your clients. They send you a picture on a text, they email you, or they can't log into the system that you sent to them because that's not working. So then, what do? They default to just email, and then you have to send that emails out. And like, let me tell you, when I say, email inboxes, right? Like that's the worst kind of line of communication. They get lost in threads, then the piecemeal goes back and forth with processors, and then the processors asking for, maybe even the same documentation, which just, obviously infuriates the client. So this way, like I said, it's automated. There's checks right there. If there's a change in income, they have the ability to, log into their bank account using our, account checks platform, and they can update, their income automatically. So when it comes to, qualifying and DTI, that's all there. um, Pricing, AUS decisioning, everything is right there, and they don't have to leave. So yeah, to me, it's very, very simple, and it's truly is seamless. And I think, you know, what many lenders face, and that's one of the biggest challenges, is that piecemeal, that kind of upfront piece. I think a lot of lenders kind of have the back end process pretty solid, right? They have their automations through their LOS system, their processors get notifications, underwriters, right? Everyone's kind of rocking and rolling on the back end. But with the consumer, I think that upfront piece is still kind of what's missing from an automated perspective.
No, I remember one time when I refinanced my mortgage. This is some time ago, 2019. The days of 2.75% mortgages are long gone, but I just remember
Yeah.
how many times my mortgage originator would ask me and my wife for uploads for
Right.
all this stuff, and I was just like, my gosh, I've got all this stuff to do. I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And I normally would get to it like at 7 o'clock at night. So I'm curious, how do you make that process easier for the consumer? Because I know that one of the biggest things that gets in the way of closing a deal faster is, my goodness, can you please upload your tax documents? Can you please upload a utility report or the appraisal, whatever it is? So
Right.
how does this system specifically help make the consumer's job of uploading those documents easier to where you can actually close faster?
Yeah, so we have automated reminders that go out to the consumer. And like I said, and it feeds right back into that one website for them. So they have their own login. And like I said, there's a checklist right there. So let's say we're asking for the most common things: your W-2, tax returns, your HOA statement, your homeowner's insurance, right? So say you got 5 or 6 things there. Well, if you've uploaded 3 of them already, it'll say completed. So then, as a client, oh, I already did those. I just got to upload like these last 2, right? So you have that running list. And then as conditions are added from the LOS platform, that'll push to your consumer portal. And so you'll see that, like, oh, you know what? The HOA document you sent, that was for, 2023. We need the one for 25. So please upload that one, right? So then, and it can be specific like that. So then, as a consumer, and this way the loan officer is completely hands off. They don't have, like, the system's just automated and it's just going. All loan officer has to really do is just say, hey, Mr. Borrower, are you getting the notifications? Please upload documents as, you're notified. And that's basically it. And loan officers can do what they are meant to do, which is a loan originator, to advise them on these various loan products out there, right? They're the experts, and that's where their time and effort should be, not,
Collecting
asking
documents.
Mr. Borrower for, yeah, not just collecting documents. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
So
So, in terms of how your solution compares to others out there, because to me, by simplifying obviously the document and the verifications and making that super fast, obviously that should create a faster loan closing process, correct? Because you're not having to
absolutely.
wait on the consumer to put it up. So,
Right.
you said something a little bit earlier, which I think we should expand upon, which is, well, I know there's other solutions in the marketplace. I
Mhm.
find it fascinating that this is not what we call a rip and replace system. In other words, you don't have to completely gut your technology stack. This kind of sits on top of it. So, can you kind of walk us through what are some of the other differentiators that makes your system better than others that already may be out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, to your point, it's huge. You don't have to disrupt your current technology stack or have, a dev team to maintain it, right? We do all that for you. And also, we have customized fields. So the default is to have, the full, 1003 in the system, right? All the declarations and everything. But what if you have a proprietary product where you don't need all that information, or you're doing a HELOC and you don't need as much? We can configure those data points. So not only does the client not even have to fill them out, they don't even see them. So now all of a sudden, you know, our system kind of walks them through a wizard. So it's maybe I think like five different points. It's like their personal information, income, credit, right? Kind of walks them through. We can customize that for you. So yes, maybe you want the full 1003 file. Okay, sure. But then again, for your specific products, or maybe you are doing auto or consumer lending, if you're a small bank or credit union, we can adjust those data fields to exactly what your product needs. And maybe it's something different that is not even asked, on a 1003 application. So we can customize all that. And that is one huge thing that I have not seen in the industry. Also, we can make changes very quickly and easily, and there's no charge for that. So
Wow.
that's yes. So unfortunately, I think in some other systems we've seen, that's cost and time prohibitive to make any kind of changes. Also, we've heard from various prospects that they're forced to use certain certain other vendors as that point of sale dictates, and that's unfair. So again, we have open APIs. We can just plug into anybody. So again, you don't need to change your LOS. You don't need to change your fee engine. You don't need to change your doc engine. Everything just feeds through our system. We can connect with anybody if you want us. And if it's an integration we don't have yet, then we can map that out. We have a full MISMO file of API, so it's just a matter of mapping out the data files, and even really just kind of just scaling down the data that you need.
That's
So
one thing that, as we've gotten to know each other, one of the things you mentioned was if somebody says, well, I already have a contract with an existing provider, or I already have a system in place and, it doesn't expire till next year. You mentioned that you were backed by Stewart, which obviously is a very financially strong company.
mhm.
So, tell me a little bit about that and your company's willingness to add value independent of whatever contracts that already might be in place.
Yeah, that's another thing we found too, that a lot of lenders, unfortunately, are locked into really long contracts. We've seen, 5, 7 year contracts even out there. Yeah. And, I've only been at CloudVirga a short while, but already prospects I've talked to, they're like, I got another year on my contract, and I can't wait to get out of it. We're looking for solutions now. So obviously, we know this is, we're a little bit new to market on this new product, which we're fine with. So, we want adoption, obviously, and for people to just get their hands on it and to start using it. So, we'll work it out. We don't want somebody to be trapped into a product and being forced to use that when, they do want to make a change. So, yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. If maybe we work it out so that, I don't know, it's like a 6 month, trial or something like that, where they're able to at least use it and get their hands on it, so that they're not double paying for two systems, right? Yeah, again, we're looking for those early adopters right now. So if anybody out there, who's listening is in the market, I mean, now's the time. I can't say we'll have the same kind of, you know, uh, offer available next year. So
It's a good
right
point.
now, right now we do. Like I said, it's early adopters that we're looking for, champion challengers. So that's we'll work it out.
Makes sense. So, I kind of get a sense like if you're a company that's lending money, that what some of the challenges they are right now is it takes forever to get these documents. It takes forever to do these verifications. And I feel like almost I'm an administrative assistant contacting my client saying, hey, can you please upload your W-2? Can you please upload this? So kind of walk us through that uh, as these lenders get on your system, what are some of the benefits, both tangible and intangible, that they can expect? For example, I'm so glad now that I get to worry about my client and put him in the right product versus being kind of a, let's face it, Chris, a babysitter. Hey, did you do your homework, right? So kind of walk me through, like, we understand the before picture. Let me know what can your clients expect an after picture. Once the system is in place, what are the tangible and intangible benefits that they can experience?
Yeah. So, well, to your point, you just mentioned like verification, right? Like not only do they, or if they want to upload W-2s and do manual, they can, but we do have that auto verification option for them. So they can just, it taps into their current tax returns, right? And it pulls that information, that data right from the system, right from their bank account. And it verifies that for them. So like I said, we use account check, we have Plaid, we have affirmative research on the Stewart side. So your clients can just automatically do that. And I can tell you from a loan officer perspective, especially when they want a pre-approval. And in today's world, many realtors will not show a home unless they actually have, a valid pre-approval, which, we completely understand. You don't want to just be running around, showing homes to somebody who's not even qualified, right, or has the money. So this way, they will actually have a verified pre-approval. I mean, that pre-approval, it's an actual pre-approval, right? It's not just a pre-qual, which is, worth the paper is written on. We do a soft credit pull, and they have their income and assets verified right there through the system,
Oh my gosh.
and without even having to upload anything because they log into their bank account, like I said, and it pulls the data through. So then now you actually have a truly verified client. After that, it's a matter of, title, appraisal, and what have you, sure. And like I said, with Stewart, we are in the process of working on integration with them. So the idea long term, actually, maybe giving away a little bit, but I think it's fine, is to have that piece also fully automated too. So depending on the product, like I'll say HELOC because those are probably the easiest ones. Um, you know, Title accelerate on the Stewart side, you can have clear title in like 30 minutes. And then you map through, a property valuation because you may not need, the full appraisal. You could have a fully verified file in like 24 hours, and so now you're closing, in days, not weeks. Um, so, that is a reality and it is a definite possibility, especially for us. So it's nice that we have, like I said, the front end solution point of sale. We also are, sister companies with Notary Cam. So we have the full e-closing, e-signing piece. We have, with Notary Cam and their remote notary solution, the RON solution. So now you can really do everything completely automated through one system, one portal, and the loan officer doesn't have to click around or go to another system or anything. But that data is still being pushed and pulled to to the source of record, to the LOS, right? Which is obviously for compliance reasons very important. So that's like future world is the way we see it.
So eventually you see yourself as an end-to-end solution that can automate it, the front end and the back end, to where all they have to do is wake up and make sure that they have all the signatures that they need to close it to
Yeah,
close the loan. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yep. And for HELOCs, for auto, for private lenders where you don't need as much information as like a full refinance or purchase, full mortgage for on the residential side. This solution is basically already ready because they don't need as much. So out of the box right now, if you're HELOC, if you do auto, consumer lending, personal loans, you can still use this right now today and have all of those auto verifications done in the system for you.
So one of the things that I hear oftentimes with banks and credit unions and lenders is, okay, well, now we got to get this approved by IT and how much time on our part is going to be in the actual implementations. I'm busy closing all these loans. IT has a 5 month backlog in all these projects. Change is hard. How do you help simplify that process? I'm intrigued that you said it only takes a couple of weeks to do the implementation versus months, but tell me a little bit more about how you make it easy for these banks, credit unions, consumer lenders to implement your solution to get these loans closed faster.
So it was really the way that it was built. I mean, I mentioned before, I found a lot of, technology teams that didn't come from mortgage. Our product managers, they actually do have mortgage experience and servicing experience. So they understand the process and the workflow, and they know how disruptive it is to have to change technology midstream, right? So it's the way they built it from that kind of modular perspective, right? So we can actually implement certain pieces of the technology that you need and want, right, at for your time. So it's much less bulky, right? And it's not static code. That's the way that it was engineered and built. Don't ask me to go into the technology stuff. That is not my realm. I leave that to the experts.
I won't.
But I can tell you, yes, the way it's built is, not hard coded. So they can, like I said, make changes easily. It's modular, so they can do this piece, that piece. So again, the goal is to get you up and running as soon as possible. So that's just how the product, the platform itself has been built.
Makes sense. And how much time do you think is needed on your client's time uh, during that 2 to 3 to maybe 4 week implementation? Are we talking 20 hours a week, 5 hours a week, an hour a week? Just
Oh,
I just
yeah, I would say, a couple hours a week, maybe from the dev standpoint. And that's really going to be mostly for the integration piece, just making sure, like obviously we're plugged in with Encompass. We want to make sure that our data is going to your Encompass, right? We want to make sure the mapping is there, and if there's any kind of customizations, we know, everybody uses Encompass 20 million different ways. So there's going to be some customizations, of course. So we want to just make sure that data is going through. So it's really going to be more for testing,
Yep.
but we're the ones, that are doing it for you. We don't expect, again, you to have like a full dev team, to have to, build it or, anything like that. We don't just say, okay, here are the keys, and then you have to figure out, how it works or anything. We don't, that's not the way we operate at all. That's one thing that's very, very important to us, from the dev and implementation perspective, to make it as easy as possible for the clients, right? And so that's what we're there for.
Yep. So, and I know that every client is different, Carissa, but can you give us like a range, maybe low, medium, and high of, okay, we were able to process loans this much faster. And it doesn't have to be even a number. It can be like our clients are so much happier because we made the process so simple for them. So can you kind of give me an idea of like if a client asks you, okay, well, what should it look like? What can they expect in terms of reduction in loan processing time? And also, more than anything, which is highly important to me at least, is what was the experience like? Because one thing I hated about the process was, hey, I need your 2018 taxes. I've uploaded it 3 times. Yeah,
Right.
the system didn't take. Can you do it again? Sure. So I do
Mhm.
it. I wait for the little clock to go and I hit submit and it says, got it. A day later, hey, Charles, when are you going to do your 2018 upload? I'm like, oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about what are some of the experiences that your clients can expect, not only from themselves, but also for their customers by using your solution.
Right. Yeah. No, perfect point. It's very frustrating. And, a lot of the systems out there right now, unfortunately, that is their experience, right? And then as an originator, I'm not going to have my client go back for the fourth time. I mean, that's a quick way to burn relationships. So you say, okay, never mind, just email it to me,
No,
right?
Carissa, I almost said forget about it. I had a
Yeah.
2.75% rate looking at me, and I was like, you know what? I'll live with my 4%. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that frustration is real. You don't have time for that. You like
Yeah.
you're working, you have, family, you're doing other things, there's life. You don't need to be spending, hours, especially when it's the same document over and over again. I mean, that's just so frustrating. So yeah, so our clients thankfully have not experienced that. That has basically been eliminated. The only time something like that happens is, there is, like a one vendor did an update and we just had to update, the mapping. And that's pretty it. And that's very rare. That happens like once every couple of years or something. But I can say I do believe the customers we've had they've told us they've experienced about a 30% reduction in that upfront process. And actually that's even with some of them, that's with the majority of them just using that consumer piece. And they still are have and haven't used. We've had mixed, usage case. Again, it comes to loan officer adoption of using the pricing with, the automated underwriting and such, lots of times the loan officer will just go back into the system, into their Encompass or what have you, or Optimal Blue and kind of price through there. It's more of a comfortability perspective, but the ones that have used it all the way through love it. And it scales their turn time, the time to even just open the system is cut in half, like we all use Encompass, sure, but sometimes with, older applications, it's difficult, to log in again, or there's an update to it, or there's a glitch. So at least, our platform is web based. So it's much easier to log in. It's a faster connection to like Optimal Blue and the, running AUS. So that's what our clients have experienced. So that alone has just been like, a weight lifted off. And that's just using it in a very basic way, really. That's just the income credit verification piece, with some of the decisioning in there and having those conditions, right? Those reminders go automatically to your clients, the very easy upload, right? That doesn't break and feeds right into, the LOS. So the underwriter's not missing anything. So yeah, so that's what our clients have experienced.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously, here in a little bit, please give away your contact information, your email, and the website. But what is one thing you wish every lender could know about your system that would incentivize them to at least have a conversation with you?
I think the one thing is that we do mean what we say, meaning that, we're not trying to smoke and mirrors anybody. We're not trying to bait switch anybody. That's happened to all of us, I think, on the team. And collectively, it's like, okay, this is like enough, right? Like, let's actually, build this system, right? That is going to do what it's supposed to do. And that is supposed to, help streamline that front end process, help get your originator back to being a loan expert advisor, right? Rather than having to babysit documents and such and waste our time on that. And to make it an easier experience for the consumer. I mean, it's 2025. There is absolutely no reason why, you know, mortgages are not completely digitized and automated. I mean, if you look at banking, it's basically the same thing. That's all automated, that's digitized. So it works the same, right? So I just, I would love lenders to know that, and that it is built by people who've been in your shoes, who know the frustrations and challenges, and you know, they've I've got to hand it to the product team. They've really made a great system.
And I cannot imagine. I mean, in the current, and I hate even saying this statement, in this current high interest rate environment, even though I remember my parents being so thankful that they refinanced from 20% down to 15% in the 80s.
In the 80s, yep.
But I mean, I can't imagine if you're getting them a 30% faster close in this interest rate environment, when interest rates do go down, which I expect they will over the next 6 to 12 months, having the system in place sooner rather than later before they get inundated sounds to me like a good idea. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Carissa, how can they find out more information about the company and about you? What would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we hope lenders, adopt this sooner rather than later to get everything in place, to your point, when the market does shift, because it will. But you can go to cloudvirga.com. My email is my first and last name at CloudVirga, so carissa.orozco@cloudvirga.com. My information is listed on the website. I'm there under the leadership team. So, but there's always LinkedIn as well. Happy to connect with anybody who has any questions, or just, wants to chat.
Cool. And just for the spelling, for those of you listening, CloudVirga is Cloud, Cloud, VIR is in Robert, G is in God, A is in Apple.com. And it's carissa.orozco@cloudvirga.com. And it's CARISSA dot OROZCO. And like I said, if you go to the website, her and her executive team is right there on the very top, makes it very simple to get a hold of her. Carissa, any other things that you would like to tell our audience before we close?
Um, no, I think we've covered a lot here. It was great to sit here and chat with you, Charles, and thanks so much for having me.
Well, I think it's cool that you've had such a neat system that really solves a big problem, which is making it easier for the consumer to get their lending needs, whether it be an auto, a mortgage, or whatever it might be. So Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. And guys, please do reach out to CloudVirga, and I appreciate your attention. Take care, guys.